All right, everybody. So that concludes day 2 of the baby girl stabbing trial. So I don't know. I have yet to hear, obviously, anything that to me changes my mind or direction that I'm going, but I'm keeping my mind open. Absolutely crazy cross examination. Very much enjoyed um, seeing the defense attorney take on uh, and call out that gentleman on some of his crazier stuff that he was talking about, um, and call him out. But the thing we've got to remember when you're watching this case, this is the litmus test and the standard that you've got to judge everything by. Is you've got to judge it from the prism of, not does she have a mental defect? She clearly does. Not does she have mental problems? She clearly does. But did they affect her ability to know right from wrong at the moment she did that? Her regret statements after the fact, those are all things you're seeing. That's one of the reasons why that psychiatrist was brought on. You might be wondering, well, why would they bring him on now? Because her writings, those journal entries, those things she said are all allowed under Georgia law to come in. Her behavior, her actions, the things she says before and after are all relevant to the jury determining whether or not she knew right from wrong at the moment that she did this. And again, the ability to know that she did something wrong and saying, I'm sorry, saying, I shouldn't have done that when she was saying she wants her baby back. Now, that doesn't mean she couldn't have had a complete break and she was told what happened and she was told the results. But the question is, what does she remember? Does she talk about her mindset leading into it? And then on top of that, what we haven't heard, of course, is the things that were being said by her, because I do believe Z or whatever his name is, Ben Baden or Ben, whatever his name is, uh, the dad of the baby and the significant other of hers is going to testify. Now, the defense obviously is going hard at the fact that she was in a situation where, she was being manipulated and she was being pushed. And but the thing is it's got to have been to a point that she had a total break with reality and truly believed whatever she was doing had to be done, and it deferred her ability to see it as wrong. So it can't just be, well, if I kill myself and kill the baby, I want to get rid of. He doesn't deserve us, and I want to go, and he's not going to get to have this child alone and raise it with the other women. That's still her acknowledging the wrongness of her actions. That's still criminal responsibility in the state of Georgia, and this jury is going to find her guilty. And it's absolutely, Remy, it is absolutely horrendous what she did. Um, uh, and to me, the concern I have with someone like her is, I mean, do we really want her out on the street? Because look, now she doesn't get out. Okay, so just to be clear, if she's found not guilty by reason of insanity, that does not mean that she's walking out among us tomorrow. What it means is that at some stage, that facility she's at is going to probably release her because she's been found not guilty by reason of insanity. So if they believe she's reached whatever the treatment protocols are for her and she reaches maximum level of treatment and they think she's cured, she gets to leave. Um, and I don't know, somebody who would do something like that, someone who apparently has been traumatized to the degree that she has been, where she felt that that was a solution. Um, there's nothing that would stop her from having another child. I mean, and she was clearly, I mean, even if you just take the gentleman we heard from today at face value, she was clearly some sort of a troubled individual, even at that, even then, because, um, I mean, apparently she would go off in the street and start yelling and screaming and hollering and just act totally unstable. Um, so there was a lot of problems, and there were problems that were causing her to act out violently, allegedly, towards people in her group. Now, again, all of this is coming from a guy who, admittedly, I don't necessarily trust anything that he says, but well, Remy Knots they are, because in Georgia, okay, it doesn't matter, and this is the scary part about this, right? In Georgia, Georgia will recognize and allow her to be found not guilty by reason of insanity if they can prove that she had an episode that removed her ability. So it means she doesn't necessarily have, it doesn't have to be present today. She could be totally fixed today, and if the hospital says she's fixed, she's leaving. Um, and that's what the defense is shooting for in this instance. Now, I don't believe that any facility would release her at this point. I think she's got a lot of work to do. Now, what I would be for in this instance is listen, I believe she's got problems. I believe that she might have known what she did was wrong, but she's got mental defects. So I believe that she should be getting help for that while she's incarcerated. I believe we should be looking into that. And some would say, well, why would we waste our time? I'll tell you why you waste your time. Because you want to understand someone like her. Because there's someone out there right now like her walking around. And if we can get her before mental health professionals, get her evaluated, learn and understand what's going on with her, then there might be people out there who can detect the next person before baby gets killed. There might be someone who can say, hey, look, these are, we can understand who she is. Now, she might never be fit for society, right? Because obviously it's like, she's gotten a taste for killing. She's gotten, she did this. She was brought to the brink, and she did the worst that you could possibly do. But it doesn't mean that there's not still value in her and understanding her situation. Now, again, I don't want to violate my own principles when watching a trial. I don't want to let my biases get in the way. But I'll tell you, it's tough for me to watch somebody who kills a 10-month-old baby and not say to myself, like, what are you doing? And to me, I think it's going to be important to hear what comes next. I want to hear what the people around her who saw her, like if there was anyone, because apparently when this gentleman that testified earlier today got into the room, she was already, I guess, losing consciousness, and she was saying something to the effect, I'm supposed to die. I'm supposed to die. I almost feel like to a degree, the defense is like skirting this line, even though they've already stipulated that she did this. It's like they want to almost, in a sense, act as if this is like a Charlie Manson type situation where it's like Ben Baden, or what was the name in here? I think you guys uh, hit it up. Whatever the boyfriend's name is, said it was like he made her do this. Ben Baden, that's it. That Ben Baden made her do this, okay, and made her, basically put it in her mind and said, you know what, here's your exit. Brian Joyce, there it is. Even better, we won't call him by his made up name. Or Benjamin, that's it. Sam says Benjamin, otherwise known as Brian Joyce. Um, but we're seeing. Listen, I mean, don't count this out yet. I mean, we have to hear the defense's experts, and if they can listen, that's why we're having a trial. So I'm leaving my mind still completely open. But as of right now, what's formulating in my mind, what I feel like is a strong thing here is she's jealous, she's upset. We're seeing it in her own writing. And that this was a scenario where she was jealous of these other women in her man's life. And we've seen this play out before in other jealousy situations where people make a decision to say, you know what, I'm going to take my life. It's like the ultimate thing for her to do. Now, I think there's one angle here that stood out to me. Obviously, we're not going to hear the state's psychiatrist said he obviously believes that she was understanding what she was doing is wrong. But there's something interesting here where she was saying, like, basically, she realized, oh my God, like, I guess she was under the idea, she was being told by this Benjamin guy that, hey, life is just a game and we can rewind life and we can do all these things. And I feel like that could be evidence that if she really was like living in the belief that what she was doing could be rewound and wasn't definite, and she was testing that out. I mean, that could that might be something that they can take and try to argue, at least to the jury, to say that alleviates the criminal responsibility, because if she really lived in that belief, if they can show that, and I think that's what the defense was going through, that there's only 168,000 actual people on the earth, and it appears in her notes that she believed some of this stuff, and that the strength of those beliefs was such that she really, at that moment, said, "You know what? I don't. I'm just going to rewind this thing. I can do whatever I want." But the question is, why kill your baby? Why kill yourself? What are you doing? Um, I just feel like, to me, at that moment, she knew what she was doing was wrong. I mean, and I think after the fact that she could put together she was going to go away to life, the fact that the first thing out of her mouth, remember yesterday, the first words out of her mouth, and this is important in Georgia, the before and the after, the moments after, but when she came to, it was not, "Where's my baby?" It was not, "Oh my God." It was not, "What happened?" It was, "How long will my prison sentence be?" And I don't even believe, I have to go back and look for certain, but I believe that was the way that was presented, was it was unprompted, meaning they didn't say, "Oh my God, your baby died." It was like she woke up, she knew what she did, and all she was worried about was the consequence. And to me, when you're looking at this case, that is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That is a statement she made that shows her absolute state of mind, and that is why I'm very firmly in the camp that when I look at the law, and I have to be guided by the law, and the jury will be guided by the law, she's guilty. Now, we have a trial, and we're going to have doctors, and we're going to have the opportunity for evidence. And, perhaps she was aware of what she did. Maybe there will be evidence that somebody told her what she did. Maybe, you could say that, she was coming out of whatever state she was in even before she went and passed out due to her injuries. But that is a damning statement that she made when she comes and asks about the prison sentence. Um, it's sad. Well, exactly right, Remy Nas. She had a lot she could have done, and I believe she knew right from. I believe she knew right from wrong. I mean, that's just my belief. I think she's going to get convicted here, and I mean, listen, this is a unbelievable crime. I mean, she needs to be convicted, in my opinion, when you do something like that to a 10-month-old child, someone you're supposed to protect. Certainly not do this. It's just it's unspeakable. It's unspeakable. But we got a long trial. This is a 3-week trial. I hope everyone knows that. What are we? Today is Wednesday, right? We just started yesterday. Today is day 2, and it's supposed to stretch 3 weeks. So we're talking, next week into the following week. Now, again, these trials, they slate them for 3 weeks, and sometimes they get them done in 5, 6, or 7 days. But remember, with this type of a case, you're going to see the state rest, and then you're going to see if things go the way they need to go, and they will. The defense will then put on their case because they have to meet the standard of preponderance of evidence. Now, they can do that through state witnesses, but they're going to probably need to put on their own witnesses to do it in this case. And then once they do that, and the judge judges that they've at least proven by preponderance of evidence to meet the standard to where they trigger now the ability for the insanity defense to be presented to the jury as an instruction, then the defense will conclude their case. Maybe she testifies, I don't know. And then after that, you're going to see the state come back to respond with their own witnesses who will have watched the defense's witness. Remember, we kind of went through this already if you've watched the Carly Gregg case, because that was kind of a similar scenario where they said she went like temporarily insane and due to abuse and things that were going on there, and she was hearing voices. And then they're going to have their own witnesses then come back who are supposed to listen to the defense witnesses, and then they will respond. It's one of the few things that sequestration doesn't go into effect. The state gets to have their experts listen to that testimony and be in the courtroom so they can then respond. And then after that, they're closed the case. So it is going to be a lengthy trial. Anytime you have that type of a situation where the defense has a burden and then it passes off to the state, they got to complete these things. And then the state will complete their rebuttal, and then we're being closing arguments. I just feel like at this point, I don't think this jury is going to have a lot to chew on at that point. I think it's going to be pretty clear she's guilty, but I could be wrong, and I'm doing it wrong. I mean, I'm not being fair to her. I'm not being fair to the justice system right now because I'm showing a little bit of bias. But like I said, what stands out to me yesterday was when I heard that testimony that said that she was uh, asking, "What is my sentence?" That is damning. Okay, and then we have, you couple that with the writings we just heard from this doctor, where all she's talking about, she's telling the people that she doesn't want to complete PT training because she says, "I'm going to go away for life." She knew what she did was wrong. She was supposed to die. You heard the gentleman today, right? What is he saying? She's saying, "I'm supposed to die. Let me die." That again tells you she knows she was doing wrong. Now, the defense will say that's part of the delusion. It's part of the delusion. She's supposed to die because of that. No, she's supposed to die because she knows she just killed her daughter and she doesn't want to live with the consequences of what she knows is wrong. And she's trying to take both herself and her daughter away from Bin Laden, or whatever the guy's name is, Brian Joyce, Bin Yamin. Sorry. That's what I believe. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see where this goes. We'll see where this goes. Remy Nas, it is going to be long, and again, it's crazy that there's no chat allowed or anything like that. There'll be other cases that'll come through long crime. I'm sure they have available, but we have one available because we're kind of like a hybrid ability away. I don't believe they can come and say I can't have a chat on my lives, but perhaps maybe I'll give a letter or a notice or something that says take your chat down. But to me, it's like one step removed. So we're gonna keep chatting away because I haven't been told I can't at this point. So we'll keep chatting, we'll keep talking, we'll keep a pulse on this one because, like I said, I think it's going to be a wild ride because we're going to hear from all these characters. We're going to be hearing more about what happened here, more about this lifestyle, more about what they've been doing, and then we're going to hear the defense's side. And if she testifies, that's going to be even wilder. And then, like I said, then we'll hear the response, and then boom, to the jury. So we'll see. These cases sometimes can have a life of their own and speed along. Sometimes testimony doesn't take as long as they thought. Today, this judge, that's I think why this judge is going to 6 and 7 o'clock at night. Hannah B says it seemed he wouldn't let the baby out of his sight. She went to her parents for several days without the baby, and well, exactly. But see, Hannah B, that feeds into the idea that taking the baby away from him was going to hurt him, and that's what she was motivated by. Not motivated by mental disease, not in some fix. She was motivated by frustration of the fact that she wanted him all to herself, and he wanted the lifestyle of all these women. And she thought, and I think she was really upset by the idea that's like, you're not going, if she gets killed herself, the baby gets raised by all the other baby mamas, right? But she wants him all to herself. She wants him to just like drop the other women, focus on her, be committed to her. And he wasn't willing to do that. So I believe, yes, she came to a breaking point, just like that other girl that the defense talked about, which they thought they're trying to bring up like, oh, yeah, Binyamin's this bad guy. But the bottom line was, yeah, he pushed that girl to leave. She left. She did what any sane and rational person would do. This girl was driven by mental defect. But the question was, again, like I said, in some states that would be a standard, that would be enough if you can show that they had mental defect, right? That there was mental illness present, that she had these things, and that was contributing. Not in Georgia. In Georgia, you can have mental illness, you can be mentally deranged, but if you can prove that at that moment If there was something driving, that there was something driving the choice besides that mental illness, that there was some awareness at any level, she gets convicted. And that's, I believe, and again, it's the before, it's the after. That evidence is allowed to go before the jury, and the jury is going to get an instruction. So some of you might say, well, who cares? No, they're going to get an instruction that they can apply that, and the state is going to argue all of these things in their closing and say, hey, this is what this shows. So, you know, that's that's uh, that's how it's going to go. So, anyways, guys, listen. Let me continue to let me know your feedback. I appreciate all of you. Appreciate everybody talking and letting us know and talking about the case. Keep letting me know your evolving thoughts. I know my thoughts will continue to evolve. If you followed me and you were here when we were following the Ferris case, we were on a Ferris wheel of our own, up, down, all around, all range of thoughts, and still right now digesting and changing and evolving. That's how these trials go, and of course, out here in the viewing this trial as just a trial justice watcher that's not in in a jury room, that's not bound by the rules of sequestration, and not being able to and not having to not research things. You know, we tend to drift a lot more and be influenced by a lot more by the time we get to the point where we're casting our vote or making our feelings known. So this jury, you never know, you know, because this jury is sitting there seeing a very different case than we are, and seeing a very different perspective than we are when they get to see these people in person, uh, in the flesh. And that's the way they want it. They want, if a trial's being done that way, that's the right way for it, because they want that jury to experience it in that very way. So, well, Remy Nas, because the whole point was she wanted to hurt him by taking that baby away. Okay, that's what I believe. This was not some afterlife crap or anything like that. She wanted to hurt him. Listen, there's no question he mistreated her. He hurt her. He did horrible things to her, to the point. Plus, not to mention, Remy, I think you also can see here too, is according to that gentleman, what she was telling these people was that her parents were abusive to her. She was apparently subject to abuse. Um, that she was subject to uh, abuse by them. That I don't think she would want her child with. So it says you're comment about her bonding with the baby. Very sad. She had parents. Well, yeah, but Remy, I think what Hannah's trying to say to you there is that he would not let her leave the baby, leave the bonds with the colt, so to speak, or whatever. So she wasn't going to be able to take the baby anywhere. But at the same point, too, I think she wanted to hurt him by getting the baby because listen. The thing is, I don't think she looked at her parents as a viable option either. That's the thing. I don't think the parents were looked at as somebody that she trusted with the baby. Um, but I think the point was she felt like he cared about that baby more than he cared about her, and obviously he wanted the lifestyle of having all these women, and I think she felt that by taking the baby away from him, that would be the ultimate way to hurt him, and I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. Um, I'm sure it was. So you know, that's just that's to me just what I think it was about. Um, I just don't think it was. I don't think it was driven by any type of psychosis. In terms of, I think she was making a choice here to hurt him. Uh, I think she might have thought too. Now, I think there were some diluted thoughts in there. Like, well, maybe I'll rewind it back anyways. I'm gonna, like, for instance, understanding this. Uh, I think it went something like this, right? If I'm thinking, she thought things could be rewound. She believed it, right? And I think she thought to herself, I'm going to kill this baby. I'm going to hurt him. Then I'll rewind it back, but I'll get to see the satisfaction of him getting hurt. But the problem with that is, right, is that she still knew it was wrong to do what she did. And that's all you need in Georgia. That's the problem. That's the problem, Hannah. Um, that's the problem. No one's ignoring the abuse. The abuse factored into the extremity of her taking that action, right? But she really wanted to hurt him. I do believe to some level she didn't really believe her actions would be final. She's learned that they are. But that doesn't change that she didn't understand they were wrong and that makes it criminal. It doesn't matter whether she lived in a delusion of finality or not. And that's where I think she went off the deep end there on this. That's why I believe when it's explained to the jury in that way, and they see the instructions and they see the law, that's where Georgia law walks that fine line. In other states, if you could prove that she thought it was going to be rewound back, even though it's wrong, like she believes it's wrong, but it's the perception of wrongness, it's the understanding of wrongness. Even if it's inside of a delusion, if she had any level of understanding that it was wrong, she's guilty. She's guilty of this crime. So, anyways, with that said, guys, I will talk to everyone tomorrow. Hopefully, everybody, cools off for a minute there. I see some people in chat are going at it. Cools off, and let's see here. We'll take this. I don't think she was jealous. I think those two dudes are psycho and drove her crazy. Well, I understand that, Hannah. They right, but see what I think you're missing. You've got to pull up. Listen, what I want you to do, Hannah B, pull up the insanity law of Georgia, and I want you to read it. And I want you to go to Justia, and I want you to go follow some of the case law that's there, because Justia gives a good breakdown on any legal issue. Follow the case law on this, and it will show you and you understand why that what we're talking about here is, it's a difficult situation, because other states, she would probably qualify to have the insanity defense here, right? Or at least not guilty by mental defect, but not in Georgia. Because if she understands, Georgia is unique. This is the uniqueness I think kind of flying kind of over some heads. It's hard to understand. In Georgia itself, this is why it's one of the most challenged laws in as far as to the Georgia Supreme Court. It's been up to the United States Supreme Court. It's been challenged for vagueness because it's very difficult to understand. But essentially, what's come to be the adopted principle behind Georgia insanity laws is that even if this person is inside of a delusion, if they, as part of the delusion, knew it was wrong, that does not alleviate the criminal conduct. That is considered to be, that can be in and out. But if they knew it was wrong, then they're going to say, okay, they knew it was wrong. Even though they're part of the delusion, they knew it was wrong. They have to have not understood it was wrong. There has to be no comprehension that this was a wrong act. That they completely broke and say they thought they were killing monsters or whatever, but they had no idea what they were doing was wrong. Now, the fact that they drove her crazy, the fact that they drove her to think this, but if she knew what she was doing was wrong, and that's why it's so difficult, because it's important. So the aspects in Georgia that are important is the before and the after. If afterwards she's seen cleaning up blood, she's wiping fingerprints off, she's asking about her prison sentence, those are all pieces of evidence that can be used, and the jury will be instructed that they can consider them as evidence that she knew she was wrong and aware she was wrong. So we'll see what happens here. Like I said, it's part of why the Carly Gray case, I believe maybe that was Tennessee. I have to go back and look. I can't remember if that was Tennessee or Georgia. But I'm thinking that was Tennessee now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Does anyone remember the Carly Gray case, if that was Tennessee or Georgia? I'm thinking that was Tennessee now that I'm thinking about it. But it might have been Georgia. That might have been why it was so difficult for her to prove what she was trying to prove in that case. Not to mention that it shouldn't have been the trial in 6 months, in my opinion. And there was a whole slew of other issues with that case. But nonetheless, the result was what it was. Absolutely, Hannah. I understand that, but that's the difficult part about this case. Is now they're not making a self defense case. They're not claiming that she walked in on abuse. What she did was she did the ultimate act of abuse, and she killed the child. Right. And the idea here is why did she kill the child? If she decided I'm going to kill this child because I want to get out of here, but she understood it was wrong to kill the child. Oh, Mississippi, thank you, Sam. I knew it was one of the states down south. Uh, but she understood it was wrong. Then she's guilty. See, it's the wrong. It's that she understood it to be wrong. It can be done in all the contexts. So she let Well, I understand that, but she still would have understood that killing her was wrong. So it could be like, well, if I left her, I know it's the wrong thing to do, but I have no choice. I'm going to kill her. That does not, under Georgia law, that will not alleviate her guilt. She will still be punished. Now, could it be a mitigation? Because remember, she's being charged with malice unaliving, right? And that is punishable, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's like it goes like 20, 40, I think it's 20, 30, 40, life without or life, you know, basically 20, 30, 40, basically parole terms without and death. I don't believe they're doing death here. Well, Ellie, it's not about, well, see, here it is. It's not about her being delusional, okay, at the time. It's about whether or not she had a concept of right or wrong in that delusion. In other words, did she understand what she was about to do was wrong? She could be delusional in Georgia law, but if she had any moment where she understood what she was doing was wrong and ignored it, that's the interesting part about Georgia law. It could even be this, like, I'm delusional, I know, and she's questioning in her own mind. If it can be shown that at any point that she had a knowledge or ability to decipher right from wrong, she is going to be held criminally accountable in Georgia. And again, they get to look at the after, they get to look at the things going on before, they get to look at the actions she took. It has to be completely devoid of any ability for her to decipher right from wrong, meaning that she would have just gone on about her life, or she stabbed her. Now, she stabbed herself, and even that alone can be used against her. The fact she was killing herself as part of this is an acknowledgement what she was doing was wrong, because it could be looked at that what she was doing was so wrong that she couldn't live with herself for killing her child, even though she wanted to do that for whatever the reason, whether it was to get her out of this or she wanted to leave. It's the issue in the again, and it's been an issue in a lot of cases because other states look at this totally different, and and again, this is going to be instructed to the jury. Whether the jury accepts that in the back is a totally different story, which is why we have a trial, which is why we have all of this come into the trial. Because really, when it comes down to it, in that jury room, there's going to be 12 people back there. And if one person says, I don't care, she was abused, she was this, uh, I am, I am just going to, I am just going to, I'm going to hold out, then there it is. That's her favor. Um, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Um, on that, and I agree, Hannah B. Listen, I agree 110% on the free Melody Ferris, because I firmly believe that from a legal perspective, they failed to meet their burden in that case. Okay. However, I think I understand where the jury went, but I think the jury should have looked, if the jury was looking at the entirety of the picture, I think there was a lot of doubt in that case. But anyways, Ellie says, I think it's obvious she has struggled with mental illness. Oh, I think so too. And listen, in some states, that would be enough. In some states, they have various different ways of dealing with the whole mental illness part. Georgia is one of these states that doesn't. It's just like Georgia's an odd state in the fact that, guess what? They don't have the governor doesn't pardon anyone in Georgia. The governor appoints a board of pardons, and then the board of pardons gets to determine if you get a pardon or not. It's very difficult to get one. Um, Absolutely he was. And listen, he failed a polygraph test, right? So he was absolutely involved. But I think that the jury, obviously, again, it's a side effect of a month long case. When the jury gets back to that room, the defense made a tremendous blunder, in my opinion, by putting on that alarm guy and allowing one of the last pieces of testimony to come in, along with the cell phone evidence. Although by acknowledgement of that juror, they never even discussed it or worried about it, except for the fact that they used it that night to establish that only Gary and Melody were on property before 11:30. So when the defense puts on that witness and shows that there are 2 gunshots heard by that witness in the vicinity of the Ferris property, I believe that is exactly what came into focus when you listen to that juror. And we haven't listened to that together. That will be coming. I haven't forgotten. We're going to keep doing some after work on that. Um, you know, it's that made a big deal. Ellie says, I've watched trials 20 years. It's extremely rare to see someone convicted guilty by reasons of insanity. I can't even think of a recent case to find someone. Oh, absolutely, it's a rarity. It's actually some cases. Are you talking about you're seeing convicted guilty by reasons of insanity? Yeah, I mean that there are some states that don't even allow that conviction. Okay, so that now Nevada is one that actually does allow that. In fact, they allow you to take a special plea to where it becomes a sentencing mitigation factor, and it allows for sentencing, which I believe the judge jumper is going to get sentenced. I believe it's either this month, later this month, or next month, where he will be sentenced, and it will be a consideration of sentencing. Um, uh, the that he will be sentenced soon, but Nevada has very a liberal, in a sense, system that deals with mental illness. But I think it should be something that's a greater discussion because I think it's an opportunity missed when we're looking at these things. Many people would say, "Well, why would we want to provide these people with stuff?" I think it should absolutely be a condition of sentence that every single person convicted of a crime is required to go through um, and see a mental health professional, because most of these people, they have some underlying problem. Drug problem is normally underlying by issues of childhood issues, of some sort of traumatic issues that they've had from there. There's trauma somewhere in their life. There's a past somewhere in their life. The only way we understand is by dissecting and breaking these people down. And by that, we can then learn and we can get more information and we can start to try to help stave this stuff off, create plans, and create a broader awareness and understanding of these people. That's how you're going to prevent this stuff. Because what I think we've shown that the idea that we're going to keep people from committing crimes by giving stiff sentences. Listen, I studied it in college. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It really doesn't. Um, so you've got to go a different route here. And the route we have to go is understanding it and then incorporating it into our sentencing guidelines, incorporating into our stuff so that when we're releasing these people back out, I mean, if we have somebody who gets a 15-year sentence and you go, man, give them the hardest time possible. Well, one day they could be your neighbor. One day they could be living in your community. And you don't want that person coming out uh, more violent, more depraved, ready to come out and victimize the next person, because you could be that person. So we all have a vested interest in ensuring that when we put people into a prison, when we put people into that system, that we put them in a system that everyone can benefit. Society benefits from learning about what got them there. They benefit by learning about themselves and hopefully taking steps to prevent themselves from heading back there and learning to cope with the issues and things that are going on that get them there. That's just my deal. Eli, she said, Hannah says, Eli, I think Chris did the dirty and Scott helped in the aftermath. Listen, I think anything's possible. I think anything's possible. Hannah B, I will tell you this, and I have to go back. I haven't had a chance to go back and do it, but one thing resounded with me with one of your comments a while back. I don't know if I actually attached anything to it. I saw it coming through, and it was like, wow, was you brought up the horses. That is an often missed detail. Why were the horses out? Right? That would make sense that the horses got out because of the gunshot. And we know Melody called Scott home about the horses at 10:55. Right? So she's seeing the horses out after the fact. So either Melody did it, and of course we will never know if it's possible that Chris or someone was with him. And I think the defense. This is where the defense said we were kind of hit unprepared because the state hit them with that cell phone data, which the biggest revelation of that cell phone data was um, was the fact that Gary went to dinner that night, verifiably catch 22, which no one knew about until the middle of the trial. Uh, uh, Ellie says you have to go back to when they closed all the huge asylums and institutions. So social services are limited by no government funding. Then our streets are flooded with homelessness, whom may or may not be. Oh, listen, a majority of the homeless are mentally ill. A majority of that. I was reading an article today regarding that. In fact, he was a writer for a Boston Globe who's homeless, and he was writing it for Vanity Fair. Heck of an interesting article. If y'all have Apple News, you should see it popping through there. But my wife, as I mentioned, works in the mental health um, side of things. She's a nurse, and in her facility, a majority of what they see come through that facility are just it's a revolving door of the homeless, and there's not enough done with them, and it just creates a revolving door. They come in, they get put on their meds. There's not a lot of resources that are able to be provided, and they end up back out on the street again, off their meds, unmanaged. Um, so it's something that um, I think that we have to figure out how to deal with it. But I think, Ellie, they were closing the asylums and institutions because of the treatment and the lack of funding. Listen, we have to be willing to put our money where our mouth is in this instance, where we have to recognize that there is a huge benefit to society if we go and start helping people with mental health issues. And part of that is going to be they're not going to be able to help themselves. They're not going to be able to afford to help themselves. So we as states, you know, personally, whatever, we're going to have to be willing to fund this through state initiatives. However, the political people come up with the ways to fund it, but we've got to figure out a way to fund these things and make sure that they're run well, they're staffed well. I can tell you right now that is a huge issue when it comes to this stuff because these people are very work intensive. Because you're not dealing with kids, you're dealing with adults. It's very dangerous, and I'm just talking from the experience that I've seen through the lens of my wife, who's I've seen her come home beat up, punched, broken glasses. She's had to go to court proceedings because of things that have happened from the patients that were there, from extreme situations and things that have happened. So it's a lot of it due to understaffing, due to having security guards that are not trained to deal with the situation, and they're tasked to come back and help out, and it becomes a disaster. So we have to recognize this is a huge problem. It's a problem that contributes to crime. Apps is a driver of crime. It's a driver of drug abuse, of drug problems. And yeah, Geraldo Rivera did. I think it was like the Bones. What was it called? The Body House or something. Yep. And they were putting bodies. I mean, people were dying under there. People were starving inside. It was horrific. But again, what we have to do. It's not get rid of them. It's figure out the problems with them and create facilities, create treatments. But listen, it starts to go with one place we can absolutely go. Oh, no problem, Hannah B. I appreciate the super there. Thank you very much. Very much appreciate it. But we just have to we have to uh, be willing to improve the facilities, improve the issues, not get rid of them. The answer isn't get rid of it because then, as Ellie has pointed out very astutely, that our streets are now overrun. My sister lives out in California. She was in town recently and she was talking to me about they have a tremendous homeless problem out there. If you go watch, there's I think it's a Great White Underbelly or something like that. It's a YouTube channel. Guy is down on Skid Row profiling all the people that are on Skid Row, and a lot of them. I mean, when you listen to their stories, the drug addiction entails childhood trauma and traumas throughout their life. So some are other stories, but a majority of what's driving all of that behavior is an inability to cope with trauma and things that have happened. Soft white underbelly. That's it. Yes, Mark. Can't remember his last name, but it's great. I mean, go check that out. I mean, it's a fantastic study in human behavior, and it tells you a lot about what you need to know. But imagine that guy's out there on Skid Row. And we have facilities, we have prisons where people are just locked up and thrown in, and they're sitting there. Our answers are sitting there. And instead, we just decide we just want to torture them. Let's just throw them in a cell and torture the hell out of them. That stories are absolutely heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. But if you're watching from a lens of trying to understand, right? Trying to understand what's driving the behavior, what drives people to do these things, and what drives people to do crimes, it's not easier to watch, but it makes it watching to say, hey, that is, it makes it worth watching. It makes it worth watching because these people are sharing their story. But again, like I said, we have prisons all over this country that we can look at it and say, hey, let's just make them torture houses and let them rot and let them die, and then keep having crime problems and keep having issues. Whereas we have the ability to study those people right now. We have the ability to learn, gain insight. We have the ability to turn corrections. I took corrections classes. I remember talking about this. My professor, who was a very one of my favorite professors of all time, I took every class I could with him. We had that very active discussion, and this was 20 years ago. And still here we sit. Nothing's been done. It's an abuse of resources that we have if we really want to start correcting these problems. Not to mention there's other ways to dig into it, but one of them is digging into the mental health stuff and understanding what drives this stuff and how can we get ahead of it. How can we, it's kind of like the concept that was in the what was the Tom Cruise movie where they were predicting crime. But it's that type of information that we need. You can't predict something if you don't understand the causes. But we sit here with resources. These people are property of the state, right? They can be said they've temporarily had their rights suspended. They're asking Minority Report. That's it, and they're asking to be let back into society. And all we say is just go suffer for 10 years in a state facility, become a better criminal, and we'll let you out. Or we say no, you've got to submit to treatment and becoming, getting treatment for your mental issues, and help us understand the psychology that led you to the place that you're at. Help us understand what made you a criminal in the first place. And once we get clearance, I mean, that should be part of the parole board situation. When somebody goes up for parole or gets early release, is we need to have a full psych evaluation on that individual and understand what's going on, where they're at. Have they gotten help for the things that they need? And if they won't participate, I mean, then they serve their sentence out and they go back out. But I guarantee you, a lot more would a lot of people would participate, and a lot of people would gain great benefit from it, and we would see the recidivism rates drop hugely. So anyways, with that said, guys, listen, great discussion. If I go look in the comments and the chat, I'm going to sit here all night long, and I'll just keep going, and you guys will keep giving me good stuff to talk about over and over again. But the good news is we'll be back tomorrow. So remember, a couple things to remember about this case. We are on an hour delay. Long Crime has somehow made it like a 45-minute delay, but nonetheless, we're following the Court TV feed. So we're on an hour delay. 10 a.m. tomorrow is when we'll be firing this feed up. Louisma, I haven't been over at that case. I know there's stuff going on over there. It looked like they finished up his statement. I saw some doctors. They got over a little early today. So I think they're getting to a stage where they're going to be wrapping that case up very soon. But go check out that case over there. I've got to do a little editing on that because we had a little YSL pop in at the end there. But and that's still going on as well. So Ellie, no problem. And thank you for subscribing and welcome to the family. And hopefully we'll be talking again. I will, like I said, I'm not always able to jump in at the end of these lives, but when I'm home and I'm here and I'm able to do it, I will. Sometimes I'm on the road and I'll just jump in chat. And then of course I will do lives, specific lives that I call it the Justice Watch Live, where we We'll watch videos. We'll talk about cases. We'll have a topic. We've got a big one coming up on a big case that you guys, some of you might know about, the Ty Tucker case. Big stuff happening in that case. So that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of days, and dropping a huge update on that. I've been promising it, but I think we're at a point now where we can sit down and have a talk. He went to court today. I actually have the court case. I have his court appearance on tape. I was able to ascertain a copy of it. So stay tuned. You will get to see Ty Tucker for the first time since his appearance in Oregon. You will get to lay eyes on him. You will get to hear what's going on with your own ears, and then we will talk about what I know about it. So that's coming up in the next couple of days. We'll be setting a live. Be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, we'll be watching this case tomorrow. Louisma, in this case, 10 a.m. tomorrow, and we'll be back at it. So until then, guys, let justice prevail. I'll talk to you soon, and I appreciate each and every one of you for watching, hitting the like button, and interacting here with me today for this very, very important case. See y'all later.
The system's rigged, man, it's time to break free. Eyes wide open, gotta see what I see. Standing on the front lines, fighting for the truth. Lift the veil of lies, it's time to be the proof. Take a stand, don't you back down. Raise your voice, let's shake the town. We're the voices that won't be ignored. Breaking chains, yeah, we're ready for war. With the power of the people, we'll make them see a world of justice, united and free. United and free. United and free. Marching with a purpose, we're taking it higher. Fighting through the struggle, igniting the fire. No more silence, we'll make the noise loud. Together in this battle.